how to knit. That's what I typed in. Can I do this? I picked up some yarn, I looked on the label, it said use this size needle, so that's what I got. And it turns out that, in my honest opinion, knitting is actually easier than crochet. Keep in mind, like, I didn't even know where you went to find patterns, you know, so you can imagine my when you find Ravelry, right? I didn't really know that you couldn't just like jump in and learn how to do a sweater. So that's what I did. Hello and welcome to She Knits Joy. My name is Samantha and I am so honored that you are here. This is actually take 2 of this video because the iPhone really let me down. So we are going to do this again. This video is really just to tell you my story, how I got into knitting, and share some of my past finished objects that I have knit in my very first year of knitting. So turns out that my Knitiversary is coming up on September 28th, and I think a wonderful way to celebrate that is to start this YouTube channel. I have a dear friend who has really encouraged me to do this, and although I'm nervous, I'm filled with excitement and I'm excited to kind of see what happens. If anything, it's going to be a lovely place to document my journey and maybe something that my kids or my grandkids could look back on, or even I can look back on. So back in September of last year, I was avoiding the dishes and I was on YouTube just kind of scrolling, and I saw this pattern for what I thought was like a crocheted like kind of shawl thing. Well, it turns out it was actually a knit pattern. And my history with knitting was very limited. It was about 15 years ago. I went to a friend's house and she was kind of teaching anyone that wanted to learn to knit that night. And I don't know if my heart was fully in it. I love trying different things, but I have to wonder if she was trying to teach us English style knitting, so where I throw the yarn with my right hand, and for whatever reason, maybe it's baby brain because I had just had my daughter, I just couldn't get the hand-eye coordination, so I gave up. I didn't stick with it. So my idea of knitting was that it was very difficult, and I had a kind of limited past with crochet. I could crochet, but I had never actually finished a crochet project before. And it turns out that, in my honest opinion, knitting is actually easier than crochet, contrary to what I had thought. Crochet is filled with multiple stitches and different ways of doing it. Now, of course, I'm not hating on crochet in any way, shape, or form. There's beautiful things you can do with crochet. But I think the thing that drew me to knitting was the garments that you could create. They were very like store-like garments, whereas crocheting tends to be a little more chunky. And maybe I just never found the right crochet, who knows. But anyway, the dishes were calling my name and I was like, I don't really want to do the dishes right now. So I saw this video and it inspired me, and I jumped in the car, I ran to Meijer, I picked up some yarn, I looked on the label, it said use this size needle, so that's what I got. My only intention with that was, other than procrastinating, was to learn how to knit. I was like, can I do this? So I went to YouTube, which YouTube is amazing for really anything you want to learn, and I was like, how to knit. That's what I typed in. And so obviously I started working back and forth doing, you know, knits and purls and stockinette stitch. Once I got the hang of that, I actually did it in a continental style. So I hold my yarn, my working yarn in my left hand, and that just made so much more sense in my brain for whatever reason. So I am a continental knitter. And so once I got the hang of that, I actually went out and found a free pattern. Keep in mind, like, I didn't even know where you went to find patterns, you know, so you can imagine my when you find Ravelry, right? But that was actually probably a search that I did, was like, where do you find knitting patterns, you know? And like with any hobby or thing that you throw yourself into, you find out there's this entire world at your disposal that you didn't know existed. So I actually did a cable knit headband. So I just kind of jumped into cable knit. The thing is, no one ever told me that I couldn't. So I just did, right? So I didn't really know that you couldn't just like jump in and learn how to do a sweater. So that's what I did. And it was about probably day 2 or day 3 of YouTube now recommending me all these knitting videos that I found Veronica at KutovaKika. Now, she is absolutely inspiring, and I saw her Salty Days sweater. I was in love. I was truly in love. And I knew that if I was going to learn how to knit, I wanted to knit that sweater. So I totally became a huge fan. I bought her PDF of her Knit This book, and I did 2 sweaters in my first month and a half in just a cheap acrylic yarn that I got at Hobby Lobby, because I didn't want to spend a ton of money, and I honestly didn't even really know about natural fibers at that point. I just went to the craft store and I got yarn. So I did these 2 sweaters, and I really got a feel for knitting, and I was like, listen, if I can make 2 sweaters, I can tackle this Salty Days sweater. And so I went ahead and I bit the bullet, and I bought merino wool and silk mohair from Knitting for Olive, which is on my shelf right now. I'm a huge fan. And honestly, when people tell you that once you discover real fiber, like natural fibers versus man-made fibers, it is so hard to go back. Like, if you're using acrylic and you're happy with that, my suggestion is don't try the real thing. So I made this order, and I ordered my yarn, and it came from Denmark, and I was so excited, and I was armed with my Salty Days pattern, and I was obsessed. It was the first week of December last year, and I just knit, and I completed the Salty Days sweater in 1 week. I was truly obsessed. So here is my Salty Days sweater in Dusty Rose colorway, merino, 2 strands merino, fingering held double with 1 strand of silk mohair. And I'm positive if you've been on the YouTubes for very long in the knitting world, you have seen the Salty Days sweater. But here it is. And this girl was hooked forever from this point forward. I absolutely fell in love with knitting. And when you have completed a project like this and you slip this on, I mean, how do you ever want to not knit? I want to knit forever. So, and then like the back, it's so beautiful. So this was like my muse, and I did it. So when I ordered that yarn, I bought the Waffle cardigan pattern on Knitting for Olive's website, and that's 3 strands silk mohair held together. And so a couple months later, or maybe it was like January, I did the Waffle cardigan. Now, full disclosure, I've actually not really worn this. My casting off experience was very limited at that point. It's a bit tight. There's not a lot of give. So if I could change anything, I definitely would have done a much looser bind off, but it's definitely got these kind of like big balloon sleeves, but you can tell it's very like airy. Get in there. So, but I do love it. This is the Dusty Petroleum Blue colorway from Knitting for Olive, and it's very soft. So that was the first cardigan that I ever did. And then I had actually bought Dusty Violet colorway to make the Arctic Lights sweater by KutovaKika. But then by the time I got done with these 2, she had dropped her Pride and Pearls cardigan pattern, and I was like, oh my goodness. I fell in love. So I actually ended up scrapping the Arctic Lights for that time being and using that yarn to make her Pride and Pearls cardigan. And here is that. Now, I actually finished this literally just before summer started. So I have yet to find the gusto to put on I've got them marked, but the snap buttons still need to be applied. But I will do that just as we go into fall. That way I can enjoy this beautiful cardigan all winter long, because it is warm, but it is, I mean, the detail is just scrumptious. I mean, it's so scrumptious. Like, it's just, it was an absolute delight to knit. I tend to be, I like the puzzle. I like lace work, and I like really detail. I like for things to really keep my brain busy. Stockinette tends to bore me quite a bit, although I am learning that it is nice to have some more simple pieces in your wardrobe, because when I had 4 balls of this left over, I went out in search of a pattern that I could use up those 4 balls. So I found the Cercis, I think it's called Cercis, top, and it is a simple, it's 1 strand fingering weight. So this is the remaining balls of that Dusty Violet from Knitting for Olive. And it's got this really pretty, like, kind of leaf lace work. And then it's just, the body is just stockinette. And I'm actually wearing this in the next video that will come out. I'm actually doing a whole video for a test knit as well as a Knitting for Olive haul. So if you'd like to see that, it would be amazing if you subscribed just so you could see that. But I'm wearing this, and it's so pretty. And it is very simple. Like, it's totally a grocery store, you know, sweater that you can throw on. But I would rock any of these at the grocery store. Who cares, right? I mean, why not? So after I had done these, now this one actually took me quite a while to finish, just because like I said, I get bored with stockinette. So in that meantime, I had met my friend, who is the one that has encouraged me to do this channel. And we actually did, I mean, are you even a knitter if you haven't done the ranunculus sweater? I'm just teasing. We did the ranunculus together, and it is beautiful. This is the Dusty Dove Blue, or Dove Blue, by Knitting for Olive, and I still need to knit in my one end. But again, it's summer, so I haven't really had any push. But this one, I actually finished the sleeves off with an I-cord, so this was my first ever experience doing an I-cord bind off, and I really like it. I like it. It's very pretty. And what rocks my world on this pattern is actually how little amount of yarn. So, sorry, my dog is walking by and he needs his nails trimmed. Leo, lay down. Lay down. Good boy, lay down. So yeah, so this pattern was really fun, and we kind of knit, she knit one and I knit one, more or less at the same time. So this is a really, really pretty sweater as well that I'm looking forward to being able to wear. Like, can summer be over yet? No, I hate to wish time away, but I'm excited to get to wear some of these sweaters. So after that, I did this one. I did a few other little things in between, but nothing of any note. But then I made this one, which is the Faye summer top, and it's a little bit large, but I really, really, it's so beautiful. I'm gonna rock it anyway. I'm gonna wear it anyway. But it is absolutely gorgeous. And again, I tend to overbuy sometimes, so I had more yarn left over. Buttons tend to be an arch nemesis of mine. So just like with the Pride and Pearls, I need to do buttons on this one. But this is the Millie cardigan, and it's a little cropped cardigan that I could wear over dresses. And it's just this beautiful lace. It's, again, 1 strand fingering. So it's a nice, inexpensive, kind of use up your yarn leftovers. But isn't that pretty? And it's got that scalloped edge at the bottom. So I'm actually planning on making this in a long sleeve version in the colorway Linen by Knitting for Olive. And then the last one that I have on my table to share with you is another Veronica KutovaKika pattern, and that is the Love Letter top. And this top is so much fun to knit. It's just, you switching up the pattern so much as you go. There's always just something new around the corner, and it just truly was a joy to knit. And I love, love, love the heart detail at the bottom. So I would love it if she would make this as like, I don't know, a sweater version, or like at least like maybe a sleeved version. I was thinking I would wear this maybe under like a little jean jacket or something like that with a skirt or something. But that is the Love Letter top. So those are just some of the patterns that I have knit this first year of knitting, and I am looking forward to doing many more. Some of my upcoming plans are the Arctic Lights. The Arctic Lights sweater I am officially going to do again a year later, and that's going to be in the Dusty Aqua by Knitting for Olive. So I'm going to do that soon, and my friend from Idaho is going to make hers with me. So that Millie cardigan, the long sleeve version of this one, I'm going to do in this color here because I thought that would be kind of a neat neutral. And then I am doing the Spark cardigan by Andrea Mowry in these two colors. So the main color will be this one, and then the accent color will be this one. And I'm going to have to be very careful because it calls for a worsted weight yarn gauge, and this will probably be more of a DK. So I'm gonna make sure that I work really hard to make sure my gauge is right. But I think that's gonna be really, really pretty, these two. Now, in her design, and what most people do is they use a color changing yarn, which I've yet to experience, but it is gorgeous. But I tend to be, I find something that I like, hence a designer that I really like, or a brand of yarn that I really like, and I tend to just stick with it. I just kind of can be that way. But maybe in the comments below, you could suggest a really neat, like, color changing yarn. That would be a great project. Something to try. So definitely suggest that in the comments below. But I am excited because what I think I'm going to do with this channel, I've got a video coming up for the test knit. I got my first test knit that I'm doing, which is the Diana top. And that is this here, which is one strand merino with one strand silk mohair in the Bordeaux color for Knitting for Olive. And I'm down to the cinched ribbing at the bottom. So that's what the next video is about. I'm just kind of documenting that process. So of course, if you want to see that video when it comes out, which I'm super excited, I've been working really hard on, then definitely hit the subscribe button so you'll at least see it maybe pop up. But I'm thinking that I want to try to share some of the information that I find useful, such as finding the right gauge, or you know, substituting out yarns, obviously always for Knitting for Olive. I'm just teasing. I don't know that I have a lot to teach the more experienced knitters, so I definitely want to help those who are kind of coming up behind me, you know, just being that one step ahead and being able to share some useful information. So that's kind of the plans for this channel, is just a great way to document and journal the things that I make, share my expertise with everyone, and just my overall excitement about knitting. I don't have a lot of people in my life, if honestly anyone, that I can just really chat yarn and knitting with. And you know, there's only so much my husband can stand to listen to. Super supportive, not as enthusiastic, let's just put it that way. So I really appreciate you taking this time to spend with me. You know, please forgive any car noise or dog nails on the floor. I definitely will, you know, get better as I do these videos, but this is just kind of real life. I look forward to seeing you again soon.